The entertainment industry is undergoing a radical transformation with constant change in the way media is created, distributed, and consumed. If algorithms enable the world, a new world of storytelling, and clicks are the new casting call, what will the future of entertainment look like? To share their insights, please welcome our panelists, Robert Bakish and Stacey Sher. Bob? How are you?
Good.
Hey, Stacey. How are you? All right. So let's level set here. We should probably tell these fine folks what you've been up to. So, Bob, do you want to start off? What have you been up to? You've been kind of focusing Viacom, haven't you?
Lying out in the sun, taking a swim here, there. No, just kidding.
I mean, it's really nice in Aspen. Can we just?
It is really nice to be in Aspen.
Sure.
No, look, I was fortunate. I was given the opportunity to run Viacom roughly a year and a half ago. And I'm a big believer in you have to have a plan. And the company candidly hadn't had a plan for a while. So we rolled out a plan. Plan had a number of elements to it. Probably central to it, which will relate to our conversation, was this notion of flagship brands. And that had to do with prioritization and true multi-platform expression. Again, we'll talk about that some more. The other thing was you need to have a killer management team. And it's another place where the company hadn't changed much. And so made significant changes on the network side of the business, really completely overhauled the Paramount team from the top down. And then we got to work executing. And if you look at what's happened in the quarters since, I describe Viacom as not a light switch, but a story of incremental progress against a destination. And that's what you're exactly seeing. If you look at our US networks and audience share, you'll see that we've consistently grown audience share. You look at a brand like MTV, which had a ratings decline in a 10% CAGR for 5 years running. Now 5 quarters in, we've consistently grown ratings every quarter. And that's a function of a different strategy and a different team and focusing on execution. As we've done that, we've made some hard choices on resources in terms of where can we get better efficiencies. We've really de-siloed the company, so we operate much more like one Viacom. And certainly the film studio Paramount working with our network brands, doing things like bringing BET to life in film, which we're going to do with Tyler Perry. His first film is Nobody's Fool. That'll be in November. So we got a lot going on, and we've been growing audience share. We've been significantly increasing our digital exposure. We created a division there, Viacom Digital Studios. Streams have tripled since I took over and have doubled year to year, and we're just getting going with respect to original content. So a lot going on, a lot more work to do. Certainly we're living in interesting times, but it's an exciting place to be.
And that's to say nothing of CBS, right? Stacey, catch us up. What's your new role all about?
Okay,
Not so new, right?
It's not so new, but my background is in film and television. So I've produced a bunch of filmmaker films with directors like Quentin Tarantino and Oliver Stone and Steven Soderbergh through the years. And when Bobby Kotick, the CEO of Activision, approached me about starting a linear division for Activision, which is the largest game company in the world, the most important thing was maintaining the same level of quality when we adapted the franchises. So we're all about moving very focused and with the best talent, so that we really can bring something to our fans. I mean, when you look at something like Call of Duty, it's been around for 15 years. There's 40 million monthly active users. We're played in 196 countries. And so to both introduce new people to the franchises and also engage and create new ways for our existing community to interact, we're pretty precious about it, So we put together an incredible team of writers and directors and advisors to start developing it. And each franchise that we attack, whether it's Call of Duty or Overwatch or Diablo or any of them, we look at what's the best strategy for that property, because our fans are able to engage with things, whether it's in gaming, whether it's in esports, whether it's in live events. We've already done television with Skylanders, and soon film, but it's all about being very, very taking care to respect the franchises.
Yeah, and you went from working on these great, some of these Tarantino movies, for example, Django and Hateful Eight, to jumping into gaming
Thanks
franchises.
Thanks for not aging me by saying Pulp Fiction, too.
You're welcome. You're welcome. But it's a good one. What convinced you to make that switch? Because that's a huge, first off, there's far fewer expletives, I will say.
Yeah, definitely a lot fewer expletives. I think, number one, the company's mandate and Bobby Kotick's mandate is quality. Mm-hmm. And integrity. And, I always joke that I ran away and joined the Bobby Kotick circus because of his commitment to excellence. And that's really what all of the Blizzard and Activision and King games are really known for, a very high bar and a great experience for our fans. If you look at what they've done in esports with the Overwatch League, it's extraordinary. They've sold out Barclays Center for the finals in their first year. So taking that mantle and him saying, what I care about is that you continue to make great, and not asking me to change the way that I do things or pander, soon we'll get to a point where it's not as improbable as when Spider-Man and Iron Man were first made. I gesture to you since it was a Paramount film, where people didn't think you could make a great comic book movie, and now it's where we live.
Yeah.
And I think that time's going to come very soon for our franchises if you approach it properly and you look at the adaptation with real care.
So one thing you both have in common is you're taking franchises that clearly have a lot of equity, and you're looking at new platforms, new ways, right? And I think that's definitely in response to tech disruption, and just like everything seems to just be breaking and resetting almost. It's like bones of the media industry. Bob, how are you thinking about this? You've got these properties, and take your pick, you have many, that you can explore different platforms with, move into different areas at a time when the business models are changing. Which ones hold the greatest opportunity for you? Which ones are you most concerned about over the long term?
Well, look, I think there are clearly challenges in the form of how consumers are accessing content. But the flip side of it is they are spending more time with content. So you may have a little more competition, but there's an extraordinary opportunity to really unleash these great franchises to a consumer base. Now, one of the differences about today and certainly tomorrow versus yesterday is we used to live in a world where essentially, at least speaking about the US, everyone had access to the same product. So if you would be in the office the next day, or you're in school, or you're somewhere else, and you were talking about something, you probably had access to it too. Increasingly, we're in a world that's segmenting where people have access to different product. And again, this comes back to why we're pursuing this flagship strategy, which is we need to have our brands and IP represented in more places such that when a consumer is thinking about entertainment, they'll think about a Nickelodeon, they'll think about Comedy Central, they'll think about MTV. Now, as you do that, or as we do that, we are mining franchises. Part of it is, sure, we're creating new product that didn't exist before. And if you look at Paramount as an example, you have a film like A Quiet Place. Different idea, great characters in it, great storytelling, great execution, including focusing on how much it costs to make, and a great result. You also have a film like Mission Impossible, right, which was premiered in Paris last week, will open in the US in 2 weeks, and it is really an extraordinary film. Now you go, yeah, that's Bob talking, he's biased, it's his film. But I'm telling you, it is an incredible film. You only have to go out and read the reviews, and that's, again, an example of taking that franchise in a film setting. Yesterday, we announced that we're taking the Rugrats franchise. It's probably a franchise most of you have heard about. It's a Nickelodeon franchise, and we're bringing that back in a new iteration, both for feature film and for episodic video, i.e. television, and we'll do a whole bunch of digital native stuff, and it no doubt will show up in our experiential space as it comes to life. Mm-hmm. So it's really mining those opportunities, pursuing some different business models, but making sure consumers have access and using that combination to ultimately drive growth, which is, at the end of the day, what I'm focused on, which is making Viacom once again grow.
Stacey, I've been blown away by how much money tech companies are spending in Hollywood, and I'm sure you have been too. How do you compete against that? How do you compete against a Netflix or an Amazon or even a Hulu.
We're in a different, we're a tech company, we're a content company, and our pillars are already strong, of technology and content, and that isn't something that we're not going backwards. We're not having to grow into tech as an old media company.
Right.
So we've always created content. Of course, it's been in gaming or shorts or things that support or esports. All we're doing is continuing to expand it. And again, I don't have the pressure of having it out in 5 minutes, because making it great is more important to deliver that experience to our consumer. I mean, we have between King, Activision, and Blizzard, there are just under 500 million monthly active users. So we're a big connected platform, and we reach a lot of people. We have the ability to cherry pick and say, hey, this project is best for Netflix, this project is best for Hulu, who's the best studio, who has the best trailer opportunities for us to make a deal with, what do all of those things look like? But we control development, because we have to maintain quality and we have to maintain that control of the experience of our franchises for our community.
Right. Bob, M&A.
But just building on that, again, with what called the tech companies coming in, do you have some incremental competition? Yes, you do. But at the same time, you have a series of demand that needs to be filled. So take Paramount Television, which is the production side, the television production side of Paramount. It didn't exist 4 years ago. Today, or this fiscal year, it'll do $400 million of revenue, and it's producing hits. It's producing hits like 13 Reasons Why for Netflix, like The Alienist for the Turner Networks, like the upcoming Jack Ryan series for Amazon, which will drop at the end of August. And so there's a fantastic opportunity to feed that ecosystem. At the same time, we look at our IP that we're developing in-house, and we do think about, is this better as a linear network show on an owned and operated network, i.e., I don't know, Nickelodeon, or is it better as a studio production, branded studio production for a third-party platform?
Right.
And so, again, coming back to the flagships, that's something we're doing, and it's expanding the ecosystem for our company. And as one of the world's great content companies, particularly in a space where there's some vertical integration going on, it's a tremendous opportunity. And we see, a lot of pickups ahead.
I'm going to come to the audience for questions in a minute, so please prepare.
I was just going to say what I think is really so interesting about what you were talking about is Amy and her team have done an incredible job
at Paramount Television.
At Paramount Television, mining your library, whether it's Jack Ryan, which has been something you've had forever, or The Alienist, which was a book that was there from when I first started working, I feel like, and really figuring out the right format for them.
Yep.
Because I think that you do find that certain things are more appropriate for television or for feature or for short content. And really you do have the opportunity now to match content to the best place where it's going to reach people at the highest quality.
But is owned and operated, is that the key? How important is it to have a direct hold on your customer versus working through third-party platforms? Because I'm thinking about all the M&A that's happening in media, and some of your competitors have been acquired by telecom companies, right? So then they own the channel and everything else. How important is it?
That doesn't apply to us because we have a direct relationship with our customers.
Right.
So we're going opposite. We have a dialogue with them all the time, whether it's on BattleNet or through King or through our console community.
Yeah.
But I also think realistically you can't own everything. You're going to have to live in a hybrid world where you have some direct connections to consumers and you access other consumers, or candidly maybe the same consumers, through third parties. And we're going to have to make decisions about what content is available where, and how do we cross promote it, et cetera. But that's just the realistic world we're living in.
Right. Fair enough. Questions, please. Looking around, it's awfully bright up here. None? Really? None? Okay, well, I've got a question for you then. Oh, there is one. Okay, sorry to miss you. Apologies.
You talked about...
Your name and who you're with, please.
Judy Wade, Fuel by McKinsey.
Thank you.
You talked about competing against the tech companies, but I'm more curious what kinds of technology you're using to innovate your product or distribution channel. So using machine learning to predict how well a story might do, or there's lots of different ways to think about that. But I'd love to hear how you're actually using technology, not how you're competing against the tech companies?
I mean, I don't use machine learning for story and character. You know, I don't think that that's necessarily, I think what you look for in story and character is how it resonates with you emotionally. So I think that, I don't know if you guys ever saw that. They fed all the elements of a commercial into a machine learning, and it was the worst commercial that you could ever imagine to see if you could. So I think that there's a magic that happens with, to be pretentious and call it art, you know, that is about singular talent, and you have to really work hard to attract the best talent. And yes, technological developments for the actual filming of films and making things more efficiently, we have the opportunity to do that with our game engine and to create real economies of scale in production.
Yeah, and just to build on that, I mean, I think, again, you use technology in different ways in different places. So for example, I wholeheartedly agree that, you know, developing characters, developing great story arcs still today is an overwhelmingly human black box kind of process. Not that there aren't exceptions in sort of how you research and all, but still fundamentally, that's where we are. Maybe it changes in the future, maybe it doesn't, we'll see over time. At the same time, we're using an extraordinary amount of technology in the, I'll call it, monetization space. So for example, when you look at advertising sales, or what we've historically called advertising sales, Viacom's at the forefront of data-driven advertising in television. And that is taking, you know, sort of the best of a television environment, you know, TV glass viewing, no adjacency problems, no questionable content, and then infusing it with targeting and measurement from data. And there's a couple of levels of that. There's a proxy-based level where you're delivering a flight on through a mix of linear avails, which is more precise than men 18 to 34. Maybe it's something like truck intenders, and through our Vantage product we do that. But then starting a year and a half ago, in every affiliate renewal we did, and we've renewed or extended well over half the sub-base in the US by now, we incorporated the provision for dynamic ad insertion. We're now able to insert dynamically in 90% of VOD homes in the US, and in the two largest cable operators in the US in a portion of the national avails. And there's a lot of tech going on in that that is ultimately helping us improve not only price, but also yield. And so that, in that space, technology is extraordinarily important to us. So I think it depends. We've seen significant value, and I think there's significant value ahead.
We had a question right up here in the front. Yes.
Bob, Adam Lashinsky with Fortune, right here. What you're describing sounds like extremely admirable blocking and tackling, fixing Viacom. The conventional wisdom is that Netflix, Apple, Amazon are spending billions of dollars, and therefore you and others your size can't compete. Do you think that conventional wisdom is wrong, and if so, why or how?
Yeah, I think it is wrong. And the reason I'll say that is it's overly simplistic. Because if you think of scale, which is at the root of a lot of these arguments, there's plenty of examples of scale where there's actually no value to the combination. And we see that today in some assets that own both media assets and distribution. But there isn't really a lot of crossover. So I'd say, is there scale or is there relevant scale? But then the other thing is, and I learned this because I ran our business outside the US for 10 years, and those are places where we had like a 1% share. So we didn't have scale. So we had to figure out how could we act like we had more scale. And so those were doing things like partnering and creating ad sales houses and the like. And that's creating virtual scale. So in a world where, yes, people are spending extraordinary amounts of money. By the way, we spend about $5 billion on content, so we're not exactly, you know, irrelevant in that regard. And we have relationships with leading creatives in front of the screen, behind the screen, in feature film, and episodic television, and yes, in digital native. And if you read the coverage of our first ever Newfront, what Ad Age said is there was a who's who of social influencers were at the event, and that was true. So I think, you know, there is an opportunity to be more nimble in this regard and not be vertically integrated and frankly serve a lot of different demand. There is plenty of, as I look at our strategy and our metrics and execution today, there is plenty of growth ahead. And if you track our story over the next 3 quarters, you will see that come to life. So I don't think there's only one answer here. And the last thing I'd say is, as someone that's been in business for, 30 years, I was in the consulting side of the business long ago. This whole notion of vertical integration and consolidation goes in waves. And you see stuff get put together and you see stuff get taken apart. And the most important thing through it all is, what's your plan? Is your team the best it can be? And are you executing? And as you execute, you learn stuff. Let's do more of this, less than this. But I continue to like our hand.
Bob, do you feel like Viacom will be independent a year from now?
I mean, look, who knows, honestly, what, and it's not a loaded answer, who knows what the future will bring. My guess is, yes, we will be independent a year from now. We're certainly executing in that regard. We definitely have the full support of our board, and we're talking about a number of interesting ideas, both organic and inorganic. But we'll just have to see how the whole ecosystem plays out.
Fair enough. Please, a round of applause for my panelists. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you very much.